Hello, and welcome to the third and final session of Parent Information Center's Planning for Life After High School online series. This series provides information about where and how planning for life after high school, also called post-secondary transition, is addressed in the Individual Education Program, IEP, and how youth with disabilities and their families are involved in the process. The Parent Information Center is a statewide family organization that provides information and training to help families and the professionals that support them work together more effectively. Parent Information Center is New Hampshire's designated parent and training information center, funded by the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. The contents of this module were developed by Parent Information Center in full or in part under the grant from U.S. Department of Education. In this session, we'll talk about how the transition planning components inform the annual goals. We'll also talk about other important transition-related considerations, including age of majority and summary of performance. In the previous modules, we covered specific transition planning components of the IEP. We discussed how IEP teams help youth develop measurable post-secondary goals and how they use the present levels to identify both the course of study and transition service needs to achieve those goals. Now the IEP team will link those transition service needs to what they need to focus on this year by developing the annual goals. Let's look at Sarah's IEP. Given the support from her case manager and/or guidance counselor, Sarah will research post-secondary programs that match her area of interest to determine entry requirements and disability services and supports offered by the program, as measured monthly by the completion of pre-made forms generated by Sarah and her case manager. If you remember, the IEP team identified one of the transition service needs in the area of instruction was for Sarah to learn more about disability support services available at colleges. Each transition service should connect to an annual goal, depending on when the IEP team has determined that that service should happen. As you remember, Brian wants to become a state trooper. However, his family and the IEP team have concerns. One of the transition services the IEP team identified in the area of employment was career exploration. This informs the development of one of his annual goals. Given support from his case manager and/or guidance counselor, Ryan will research the requirements to become a state trooper and/or similar career in law enforcement as measured by the completion of monthly checklists filled out by Ryan and his case manager or guidance counselor. As we've described through Sarah and Ryan, transition changes how IEP teams develop IEPs. However, annual goals related to transition don't necessarily take the place of other annual goals. There may be still goals related to increasing reading or math skills. Transition-related goals can help make the development of those skills happen in a more relevant way for youth. Progress monitoring is part of the special education process, and this includes monitoring progress on the transition planning components. However, for transition to be effective, the IEP cannot be only looked at during the yearly IEP review meeting. Youth need more frequent opportunities to go through their transition plan to see if they're making progress towards their goals and review the need for additional or different supports in it. Best practice suggests that transition plans be reviewed and updated quarterly or in conjunction with the issuing of report cards. This frequent review reinforces to youth the purpose of the IEP and the transition planning. There are requirements in the special education process beyond IEP components to help a youth prepare for transition to life after high school. One such requirement is called age of majority. The age of majority in New Hampshire is 18. Once your youth is 18, they're considered to be their own guardian, and they become the educational decision maker unless other arrangements have been made. It's important to know if your child is over 18 and no arrangements have been made, the district no longer legally able to invite you, the parent, to the IEP meeting. If your youth would like you to continue to be involved and invited to the IEP meetings, pick has a sampler they can use. By age 17, the youth with disabilities must be informed by the school of their rights under the special education, and those rights will be transferred to them when they reach the age of majority, which in New Hampshire is 18. There should be a statement in the IEP that documents the youth have been informed of their rights. It's important to talk to your youth about what happens when they turn 18 and how your roles each might change. Are there transition services that need to be added in the IEP to help them develop self-advocacy skills to fulfill their role expectations? Or are there related service connections that need to be made? Another topic tied to age and maturity, depending on your family and youth's unique circumstances, is guardianship. You may want to learn more about power of attorney or guardianship. There are different types of guardianship. They can be limited to educational decisions, healthcare decisions, or financial matters. If you have concerns around your youth's decision-making capacity, you should speak to a lawyer. In January of 2022, New Hampshire passed a law recognizing supported decision-making as a choice. According to Black and Martinez, supported decision-making is an alternative to guardianship through which people use friends, family members, and professionals to help them understand situations and choices they face so that they can make their own decisions without the need of guardianship. It's an immersion approach to providing decision-making assistance without imposing any long-term legal limitations on rights or personal liberties. In New Hampshire, if a youth IEP team is discussing guardianship, they must also inform the youth and their family about options of supported decision-making. The IEP team must also make resources available to assist youth in establishing a supported decision-making agreement. If a supported decision-making agreement is developed, the IEP team must abide by any decisions made by the youth under that supported decision-making agreement. New Hampshire has also recently passed legislation that requires IEP teams that are meeting to develop, review, or revise an IEP for a youth who is 17 or older, or who is turning 17 during that school year, to discuss voter registration as an appropriate community living goal or citizenship activity. If appropriate, the IEP team must also discuss when and how voter registration should be accomplished and include the decision in the IEP. This requirement does not make the school district responsible for bringing your child to register to vote, but the IEP team may identify strategies and supports needed to assist them to register to vote. Voter registration should be included in the transition services. If you refer back to Ryan's transition services in his IEP, you will see that registering to vote was included as a service his family would support as an adult living objective. Another component of the secondary planning process is the summary of performance. The summary of performance is required to be provided to a youth with disabilities upon graduation or the completion of their educational program. The summary of performance is individualized and does not require any assessments. It's meant to be a tool that includes recommendations on how to help a youth explain their abilities and needs in furthering their education or obtaining employment. The New Hampshire Department of Education has developed sample forms that districts can use in writing the summary of performance. It's a good idea to discuss the summary of performance with the IEP team during the last year of eligibility. It's important to know that the summary is not a sufficient proof of a disability for determining eligibility or guaranteeing services after high school. Children with disabilities found eligible for special education are entitled to a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, from ages 3 to graduation with a regular high school diploma or to the age of 22, whichever comes first. The IEP lists the services and supports required to provide the child with disability with FAPE, and the school must provide services listed in the IEP. Once your youth graduates with a regular high school diploma or turns 22, whichever comes first, they are no longer entitled to a free and appropriate public education. There are no IEPs in college or employment. They may, however, be eligible for adult services. Adult services are dependent on eligibility and funding availability and typically do not begin till the youth is 21 years of age. There's a process for accessing disability services at the college level. Each college has their own process for services. It's important to understand and complete the process for services if services are needed for college. There are protections under both Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Youth with disabilities will be able to self-identify and be able to describe reasonable accommodations they require. This module has provided a lot of information about preparing for life after high school. Some key points to keep in mind include it's crucial that you and your youth be involved in the IEP meetings to help plan and brainstorm around potential supports and create a richer experience. For youth, this participation is not only crucial, but their input is required. Not all children are wanted to go to a meeting. but just because they don't want to attend does not mean they have nothing important to say. It's important to provide opportunities for involvement in developing their transition plan. Other ways to help communicate their ideas and goals and practice their self-advocacy skills include having a pre-meeting with a case manager or an IEP team member, completing worksheets or surveys, or participating in an informal interview. They could schedule their own doctor's appointments or haircuts, etc. Youth goals drive the process. Goals may change over time. As your youth has more experiences related to life after high school, they may uncover new interests or rule out ideas that were initially included. The transition process can be used not only to plan for, but create opportunities to explore and grow. In this video, families share their thoughts and experiences with the transition process.
Biggest thing that we learned over time was that, her transition goals and the IEP in general, it needs to change. You have to do it every year, but in some ways, if you're not changing it more frequently than that, then you're really not learning, because when you put a plan together, things change, see things don't work, you need to modify the goals, you need to modify the approaches and the objectives. So it's got to modify, and you got to meet frequently.
Parents have to realize that 18 is not the golden age. There are a lot of services that you receive now that you will not receive in disability services on the college level. And that often surprises parents. They're there for a totally different reason. So if you know that the executive functions are not quite there for your child, or that there is something that seems to be lacking in your child that should be provided in their IEP or has not been addressed in their IEP, it needs to. There's a lot of things that they can do under the special ed laws that will help your child if you do not insist on them graduating at 18.
This was a successful plan for my son, and I attribute it to the people that helped us. He had family support, but it was also the professionals around us that not only supported my son, but supported my family to help make the right decisions. Parent Information Center was instrumental in keeping us focused and going in the right direction. And the end result was he completed the course.
The most important part of his transition is to focus on his goals at the very beginning. It is not a easy and short process. It will be some challenges, complicated items, and involves many people, and our hope is to able to guide him and get him to where he wants to achieve.
We must always look at our children in a positive light, because most people very quickly can figure out what they can't do. And that sometimes colors what they can do.
Thank you for viewing our online Life After High School Post-Secondary Transition Series. If you have any questions or need more support, please call our office and speak with one of our educational specialists, or use our contact feature on our website. You can also find a copy of PIC's Transition Toolkit on our website. We ask that you help us ensure the quality of our training by taking a short online evaluation. Please click this link. Thank you.